What's up, Radio Shade Tree Surgeon here on the second video of our cross-country trip on police auction BMWs. And if you watched the first video, if you didn't, please go watch it. And if you did, you'll remember that I say never leave home without duct tape, because I've literally never been on a single long-distance trip where the bike was not decorated with some sort of duct tape residue afterwards. And we're just about to leave the first actual leg of our trip and not just riding around Portland, and we're already using duct tape. Now that we had Shaylisi's bike officially christened with the sacred mark of adventure, it was time to meet up with our ride buddies. I felt a bit like an outsider, as these were all high school buddies of Sugar Tree Jason. Honestly, it felt a bit like a John Hughes movie reunion. Old high school buddies, some of whom hadn't seen each other in years, but all ended up in the same business. The fellowship has assembled. Now let's do some trudging. We get to ride. Lewis and Clark had to trudge. I try not to trudge very often. Continuing a tradition that started with listening to The Stand on her first cross-country trip, Shaylisi chose to listen to Stephen King's It on this one. The parallel themes of childhood friends meeting again later in life for a death-defying adventure really gave me the fizz. It was everyone from the Oakland chapter of the Losers Club first long motorcycle trip as well, to borrow another theme of defeating fear from It. Though hopefully it doesn't end with anyone having to fight a trans-dimensional shape-shifting evil monster. It actually made a lot of sense to have me, an outsider, lead the trip. Not only did I have no pass with anyone except Jason and Shaylisi, which would curtail any bickering over route choice, but I also had the experience. Or so they thought. 5 miles into the trip, not only had I missed exits, hit traffic, and broken up the group at lights. What the fuck, man? But I also desperately had to piss before I hit 6th gear for the first time. Jesus fucking Christ, dude. I wonder if Lewis and Clark had to pee within the first mile of them going on their adventure. Doesn't seem very heroic, does it? Not wanting for the group's first impression of me having to empty my Girl Scout-sized bladder in the first 10 miles, I was infinitely thankful for Jason for getting to latch his saddlebag. Don't even sweat it, man. I'd rather we stop, seriously, because I had to piss 1 mile after we left. Allowing me to not only leave my mark on the side of the freeway, but also indecently expose myself to a large cross-section of innocent Portlanders just trying to get to work. And honestly, sometimes the jokes just write themselves. Oh, thank God for small miracles. Freshly devoid of urine, we set back to escaping Portlandia. I'm still always shocked at how quickly you fall off the face of the earth in Oregon. In a few short miles, we had traded kitschy-themed, cruelty-free vegan restaurants and the modern-day opium dens of the tent cities for the breathtaking but incredibly harsh beauty of the Oregon wilderness. Going from traffic jams to the absolute it-will-kill-you-in-a-heartbeat wilderness in like 10 minutes? That's wild, man. Now, you could get killed by something wild in Portland, too, but that usually costs about $150 an hour. Roundabout out here, the bears will do it for free. Our destination for the night was Lewiston, inspired by those old American gods, Lewis and Clark. Despite us certainly having truck with the new American gods, riding technology beyond the wildest imagination of the men in these American legends on roads that they certainly dreamed of but never saw. Ours was a faint echo, a pathetic tribute to the giants who blazed these trails on foot. Though I did feel a sort of kinship with the men who came before me, just as Lewis and Clark surely lamented being forced to eat their horses while lost in the Rocky Mountains. I too felt the cruel sting of deprivation when the gas station didn't have fresh chopped onions for my hot dog. 20 miles outside of Portland, it's a jungle. 100 miles outside of Portland, it's a John Wayne movie. Sometimes a blessing, oftentimes a curse, my imagination runs wild. And looking at these great swatches of dramatic landscape painted on the earth before me, I reveled in imagining what it must have looked like to those intrepid souls that made up the core of Discovery. This would have been the end of their 2-year journey. Would they still be able to wonder and marvel at these sights? Or would the landscape have become nothing but a backdrop after all those months of trudging? We can't know the truth, but I would like to imagine that any soul that possessed the level of grit, determination, and testicular fortitude with a healthy side order of piping hot insanity, I'd like to imagine that they kept that sense of wonder all the way through. Would the adversity have made the peaceful views that much sweeter? Would the fear of being lost forever allow for genuine awe at the immensity of this earth? It's impossible for me to know. It's hard for me to even guess, but I do know this. The manufactured adversity of seeing these things from the back of a motorcycle motorcycle spices the sense of wonder I feel at this world being unfurled before me. To see it from a plane would be like an extravagant steak being described to you in words. To view it from a car would be a soup without salt. But to see it atop these machines, actually in the world and not walled off from it, that, my friends, is the chef's secret ingredient. Though hikers, cyclists, and survivalists would certainly call their methods better, we all share the same secret. Reward without adversity is a hollow thing that turns to ashes in your mouth. We may be manufacturing our own adversity in the way we traverse this land, but nonetheless, we see something that those who don't never will. So yes, I do think these men viewed this land with eyes not too dissimilar from mine or yours. And while we're certainly pampered and powdered pansies compared to those hard men, hey man, even Chihuahua's still got a little wolf in him.
Just the absolute scale of it all, baby! Oh, God! I can't imagine, on the back of a motorcycle, knowing what I do about the world, knowing that people have been to outer freaking space, and still just looking at the insane scale of this. I can't imagine what Lewis and Clark were feeling when they saw this for the first time. Mind-blowing. And we're officially off the highway. The Dothraki Sea awaits.
The John Wayne landscape gave way to great seas of grass on vast plains, with the most aggressive amount of nothing I've ever witnessed outside of Nevada. When I say nothing, I mean nothing. We would barely pass a car for miles, let alone anything that looked like it could house a human being.
I guess I've seen more nothing before, but I can't remember the last time I saw a more nothing than this. Checking back in about 20 miles later, yeah, still nothing. An aggressive amount of nothing.
The arrow straight road with the flat uniform brown nothingness was peaceful and provided a meditative respite from the downright theatrical shock and awe of the landscape that preceded it. A time to ponder, pontificate, and reflect on just what the hell I was doing on this suspect machine going breakneck speeds very far away from home.
Why does that look like a dehydrated Windows XP desktop?
Unfortunately, I did not ponder the amount of miles between gas stations and had a few in the fellowship running on fumes.
An oasis? What the hell is this town doing out here? What are you guys doing? I just don't know.
Just in the nick of time, we managed to find a completely deserted gas station in an also seemingly deserted town.
Washtukna. All right. Well, let's hope the gas pumps are on. Yikes. Fingers crossed on this one, boys.
They just had these pumps and a strange breezeway with a very suspect-looking credit card reader in it. After trying everyone's card and it not working on anyone except for mine, we eventually got it to allow us to pump gas and filled up everyone on one card just in case. I'm once again thankful that God loves puppies and idiots, and my lack of checking ahead for gas stations didn't leave us in a bad spot. After that, it was a race to Lewiston, as I didn't want to ride too far in the dark. I feel like I've done so many miles under cover of the night and not hit a deer that I'm probably pushing my luck at this point, and I hate ending a day of riding without a hot meal. The plains end with an abruptness that's incredibly surreal, dropping us off the edge of the world and into the city of Lewiston.
I had no idea we were just gonna drop into this valley like this. Wild.
Which also came with its own surprisingly Lynchian level of surrealism. The second we put our kickstands down, a man greeted us by name, like we'd always been here. Lewiston and Clarkston is so cool. They actually sent out my man Justin here as a welcoming party with a dog for Shay Lisi. Didn't expect that when we came up, but apparently they heard we were coming and gave us a royal treatment. He just started last week as a welcoming squad. A quick search revealed that the only hot food in town being available was at a dirt road tavern named the Lightning Horse. The town was quite deserted as we made our way there, and the bar looked suspiciously out of place. Being the sole walk-in business nestled among warehouses on the river in the dark, with neon lights that stopped abruptly in the pitch black darkness surrounding it. Firmly in the uncanny valley, it seemed a predator's farce, a dangling neon lure in front of an eldritch horror's needle-lined mouth. The inside was swathed in an otherworldly blue light that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. Our waitress assured us that she had made food for humans, but she herself had never tasted it. Whether this was due to her feeding on flesh of a different variety, or possibly because we inhabited a temporal space outside of time and she never hungered at all, I don't know, but we all felt it safe to order what she claimed was her favorite dish to make. We were merely visitors to this dimensional rift, and it felt as though pushing any of the specters inhabiting it off their worn-in paths could result in the mask shifting. The true nature underneath this veneer was roiling and straining, probing every crack and crevice, leaking out of the seams, the thin spots where it bulged through into our reality, taking on the facsimile of human form. I couldn't tell if this entity had malicious intent, its true nature incomprehensible to the human mind. I just knew that madness lay just beneath the surface, and I dare not disturb it. It allowed us to leave, and we slept. In the morning, I searched for the bar to make sure I wasn't dreaming, and found no record of it existing. Seek out this neon dream if you dare, but I beg you, for the love of humanity, order the cheesesteak.
Used to be so nice, it used to be so good.
With the morning sun burning away the previous night's phantasms, we prepared to hit the road.
Oh my god, bees! Why are there so many bees?
We stopped for a moment to admire Darth Vader's pontoon boat in the parking lot. How many strippers you can fit on this bad boy?
A lot.
Then we noticed that Gabe's rear tire was rubbing on his seat bolt, and after a fruitless search for a replacement, he decided to ride on and keep checking on the tire at stops. I was incredibly excited to ride Highway 12 in Idaho, over 100 miles of winding, twisting roads through the foothills that does follow a portion of Lewis and Clark's Northwest Passage. The road was absolutely gorgeous, definitely a little more traffic than I would have expected, but overall an amazing experience.
Hot tubs and cold beer. Sounds like my kind of place, baby.
There's always something so special about a road that follows a river. Having nature dictate your path just feels incredibly satisfying to ride. It's the kind of feeling that tickles my hindbrain, stimulates the caveman in me who still has the biological urge to roam. Animals, bipedal and otherwise, have been following the natural path that water carves through the landscape since time beyond reckoning, and at my core, I still just feel like a jumped up monkey. So I like this shit. I would even venture to say that the scientific nature of Lewis and Clark's expedition would be the least natural thing about it. Manifest destiny and the desire for expansion, propagation, and domination, like it or not, is much closer to our natural animal instincts than documentation is. Though I'm not here to comment on the morality of Thomas Jefferson's push to expand the United States. For me, at least, these events are so long ago that they've devolved into mythology. Though it certainly deserves to be said that there are real-world impacts, atrocities, and inequities in existence today that can be traced directly back to the Discovery Corps' first and last mission. Surely these were men, just like any others, not really worthy of their hallowed status in the American pantheon of gods. Just men of their time, with their own petty meanness, simple desires, and secret hopes. Growing up in the American school system, at least when I went to school, was a cult-like indoctrination into the lore of America and the giants who carved it out. As a child, there was little difference in my perception of the Lewis and Clark expedition and Prometheus stealing fire from the gods or Moses parting the Red Sea. And in hindsight, the fact that American history, Greek mythology, and divinity were all taught to me by the same teacher in the 4th grade is just the pinnacle of irony. As a grown man, and I use the term grown loosely, examining that duality of knowing these were just men, albeit extraordinary men, examining that next to my child's picture of them as hallowed godlike figures is an exercise that I enjoy very much. My memories of being a child and thinking about Lewis and Clark exploring unknown territories, braving certain death, and seeing natural wonders beyond belief. Cartoons and video games didn't have shit on American history. You want a thrill ride bride of daring-do, swashbuckling, and brawny-chested adventure, look no further than a 4th grade American history class. The fact that the mission was technically a failure in its trade goals meant nothing to me. I was there for the action, baby. I wanted nothing more than to follow in those footsteps, be an explorer conquering new lands, discovering strange and exotic creatures, learning the foreign customs of native tribes. Pocahontas had also just come out, so Disney had assured me there would also be hot single native women who wanted to get to know a chubby white kid from Florida. I was 12, okay? Give me a break. But we grow up. We learn that the history taught to us was a heavily romanticized fraction of the whole story. As we become men, we realize that Prometheus is nothing more than an allegory. Our faith wanes as the callus of experience waxes, and those American gods, Lewis and Clark, were just men. Nothing more. The trope of the great white savior eventually turns those childhood fantasies bitter in your mouth. How could I have ever thought Lewis and Clark were the first people to see these sights? How blind I was to not even take into account the native peoples already there. Do their eyes not count? How could I be so naive? Hell, Lewis and Clark weren't even the first white men to explore that far anyway. Sir Richard Mackenzie beat them there by over a decade. The world as a child was a place full of wonder, waiting to be discovered by me, and it slowly turns into a known place full of scrabbling, petty men. No undiscovered lands waiting for that 12-year-old kid. Just lies, atrocities, and a sting of shame that sets in whenever the blinders are torn away. Examining both these far reaches of my own personal spectrum brings me to a good place, as neither one is wrong, but also is neither one the truth. Untold millions have gazed upon these same sights, maybe just thousands before Lewis and Clark, but really who knows? Is their experience any less seeing it for the first time that some other soul gazed on it before? Being first, or at least being perceived as first, might matter to the history books, but those were written long after all these heroes went back to the mud. Hitting these two selves against each other, letting the jaded adult have a knockdown, drag-out fight with the daydreaming 12-year-old, and just examining what's left over, brings me to a better vantage point to experience this than either one of those people thought was possible. Where it brought me is knowing I don't need to be first to be able to enjoy this, and I am certainly not required to pay homage to anyone who came before me. The entire world exists right from where I'm standing, and you too, of course, but I can only experience it from where I am. My experience exploring this part of America, made mysterious by the mythology of my youth, is no less as amazing for my eyes for the first time than it was for Meriwether Lewis. I'm just some dude, but so is he. Huge thanks to Odin MFG. The collaboration with us on the Baja Heavy Hitter gloves and offering a store-wide 10% off with code BRAPSTAR is making this trip possible. And of course, the driving force behind this trip is not just for me to ramble on about any fool thought that comes into my head, but also to draw attention to the cause of Forgotten Angels. Forgotten Angels is a Florida-based charity that is working hard to put an end to the cycle of foster care abuse. Beyond building tiny homes and mentoring young men who have suffered from the abuse of not only their parents, but also their state-appointed protectors, they also aim to combat homelessness of all kinds. There will be a link to a raffle down below. We will be giving away both these BMWs we're riding and the two XR650Rs that Sugar Tree Jason donated. But you will also be entered to win $250,000 cash or a home in Florida. 100% of all ticket sales, and I mean 100%, goes directly to benefit Forgotten Angels. Be a bad person doing good things and follow the link below to help out the cause. There'll be more videos in this series coming soon, so please hit subscribe and share this video with someone who needs that kick in the ass to get out there on a sketchy motorcycle and seek out some adventure. Till next time, y'all, keep it weird.
Crashing through the sky comes a fearful cry. Shade tree, army. Shade tree, army. Armies of the night, evil taking flight. Shade tree, army. Shade tree, army. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Panic spreading far and wide. Can the world oppose the deadliest of foes? Shade tree, army. Shade tree, army. Who will risk it all? They never say die, walking tall with banners high.
Shade Tree Army, a ruthless gang of scum, villains, freaks, and bikers determined to rule the world.